In this video, we're going to look at wages and overtime for National 5 applications of maths. So for any kind of gross pay question, so that's the total amount of money that someone makes before any deductions are taken off, you've really got to consider two things to work that out. And that is what their basic pay is. So that would be what they would earn under normal circumstances for working contract hours. So that would be their basic pay. And then once you've calculated their basic pay, given information that's in a question, you would then also have to add on any overtime hours, overtime pay, or any kind of extras such as commission or perhaps bonuses. So we're adding on overtime or any extras. So for these types of questions, if you can work out what both of those are, breaking them down, add them together, that'll give you someone's total gross pay. So let's take a look at question number 1 that we've got here. We've got Paul usually works 30 hours each week. He is paid time and a half for any additional hours that he works. His basic rate of pay is £12.50. Last week he worked a total of 7 hours. Calculate what his gross pay for last week was. So we need to work out what his basic pay is, what he gets paid for overtime, and then add those two together. It really is as simple as that for this type of question. So for someone's basic pay, it's just going to be how many hours they are contractually obliged to work. In this case, he usually works 30 hours a week. That's like his contract. And then times his hourly rate, which it says is £12.50. So we're going to do 30 times £12.50. Now I believe this is a paper 1-1 question, so this will be non-calculator. So if I'm timesing by 30, that's actually the same as times 10 and then times 3. Or times 3 times 10. So if I just consider that, if I times it by 10, that moves the decimal point 1 place. And then times that by 3, so £12.50 times that by 10 would be £125. £125 times 3 is £375. Again, if you're unsure about any of those steps, so 125 times 3, that's something that you can potentially just consider 125 plus 125 plus another 125. Or you could just set down a wee calculation for that, some working. So that's what the basic pay is. Then we need to work out what this person gets for overtime. Now for overtime, you're going to get paid at a higher rate than you would normally. And in this question it says he's paid time and a half. Now there are 3 main ones you really need to know for National 5 apps. Most of them are quite self-explanatory. So for time and a half, in this situation, we would multiply by 1.5. So that's time and a half. Then we might get double time. So that means obviously it doubles. Potentially you might get triple time, and that would obviously mean that the hourly rate is multiplied by 3. But there's also another way to kind of consider it. Technically what that would mean if you were working time and a half, that means, for example, if you worked 10 hours overtime, you would actually end up getting paid for time, 10 hours, plus a half of that, which would be 5. So you would actually end up getting paid for 15 hours at your basic rate of pay. Okay, or you can multiply your basic rate of pay by 1.5 for time and a half, 2 for double, and 3 for triple. Both of those are equally valid depending on which way you prefer. So first thing we need to do for overtime is actually work out the rate of pay that they are receiving, and it's £12.50 is what they normally get, and that's been multiplied by 1.5, so 1.5. So when you're multiplying by 1.5, what you're really doing is taking 1, which would be £12.50, and then adding on a half of 12.50. I'm going to have to squeeze this in. Okay, so this is non-calc, so we'll be doing that non-calculator. Obviously, if you had a calculator, you would just type that in. So £12.50, thinking about what a half of that is, it's £6.25, and then we're going to add on £12.50 to £6.25, and that gives us £18.75. But as I say, if you had a calculator, or you were allowed to use a calculator rather, you would just multiply by that, and that would give you the same answer, obviously. Okay, obviously double and triple times are a bit more straightforward than that to do non-calculator, but for time and a half, you think about what they normally get and add on half of that, basically. So that's what the rate is, and they worked 30 hours normally, 7 hours of overtime, because they worked 37 hours this week. So we need to account for those 7 hours. So it's going to be 7 times £18.75. Okay, and if you can't do that, just set it out as a sum. Yeah, if that's something you can't obviously do in your head really. So we set that out as a sum. 1875 times 7. We've got 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 7 is 49, plus 3 would give me 52. 7 times 8 is 56. 56 plus 5 would be 61. And then 7 times 1 is 10. 7 times 1, sorry, is 7. 7 plus 6 is 13. So that's how much they get paid for overtime. So we've got basic pay, we've got overtime pay, and to work out the total, the gross pay, all we do is we add the two of those together. Plus 131.25. Adding those together. Seven plus C is 10, carry the 1. And I'll just do a wee quick check on my calculator just to double check that that's correct. And that's our final answer, £506.25 for that question. So while these can be worded differently, the process is kind of the same. You work out their basic pay, that's just how long they normally work, times their basic rate, and then you work out their overtime pay taking into account whether it's double time, triple time, time and a half. So let's take a look at another question here. And this one's slightly different because it's more kind of wordy. And we've got to work out the times that this person's actually working. So it says we've got Mo that's an electrician. The table below shows the hours that he's worked last week. His basic hourly rate is £15.60. Any hours that are worked between 6 PM and 7 AM are paid at time and a half. And again, we're working at his total gross pay for that week. So remember, that's the basic pay, what they get normally, plus any overtime that they get. So let's work out his basic pay first. Now, each day we need to work out how much he works, and then we'll multiply that by 5 because he's working for 5 days. So from 9 to 12:30, that's 3 hours and 30 minutes. And from 13:30 to 6, that would be 4 hours and 30 minutes. And then obviously in total, that would be 8 hours that he's working per day. But we're multiplying that by 5, so it's 8 hours per day for 5 days, just writing that down. So that means that he's working 8 times 5, which is 40 hours normally. And then we're going to work out what 40 times his basic rate is. So £15.60 times 40. Remember, that would be the same as timesing by 4, timesing by 10 in either order. So times by 10 would be 1 156, moving the decimal point, and then times in 156 by 4, by 4 with times by 10, so we're timesing by 4, that would give us £624 in total for that one. Again, if that's something you need to set down or something, obviously just do that. I'm just concerned about space on my page. Let's look at the overtime pay, because this person's getting overtime for some of the hours that they work. It says that hours worked between 6 PM and 7 AM are paid at time and a half. So these two here are paid at time and a half. So let's work out how many hours that is. Obviously from 18:30 to 21:30, that's just 3 hours, and that's 2 lots of that. So it'll be 2 times 3 hours is 6 hours of overtime. And for overtime, you're getting paid at time and a half. Now, let's consider a slightly different approach to this one. So, as I said at the start of the video, you can either consider changing the hourly rate. So you could multiply by 1.5, work out what 1.5 of that is. But you could also consider that this person's getting paid time and a half, which literally means they're getting paid for 6 hours plus a half of what that is, times their normal rate. Both of those are equally valid. So time and a half for 6 hours, okay, which would be kind of 1.5 times 6. Obviously the 1 is just 6, half of 6 is 3, so they essentially get 9 hours equivalent at basic rate. Now that can maybe be slightly more straightforward than doing 1.5 times 1560 and then multiplying by the 6 hours. Both methods are valid, I just thought I would show you the different one. So I'm then going to do 1560 times 9, and that'll tell me what the overtime payment was. 9 times 0 is 0, 9 times 6 is 54, 9 times 5 is 45, plus 5 is 50, that'd be 9, plus 5 is 14. And I'll just double check that just now. Yep, £140.40. And again, that would be the exact same as doing 1.5 times 1560. And then timesing that by 6. You get the exact same answer either way. So we've got basic pay, we've got overtime pay, and let's work out what they get paid in total by adding those together. And that is 764.40. I'm just doing that one in my head, but as I say, you can set out working for that. Okay, but that one's kind of a wee bit more straightforward. All the numbers kind of work out nicely, and that's how much they get paid in total for that week. Okay, let's look at number 3. Now, number 3 is slightly different because this one's dealing with commission, and as I say, those are kind of the two kind of main questions that you can get asked. Really, you might get some kind of overtime question, or you might get an overtime or bonus question perhaps. And then in part B of this, it's also discussing net salary, which is part of the wages and overtime topic. So it says that Anna works as a sales assistant for a computer company. She's paid a basic monthly salary of £2,450 plus commission of 2.5% on her monthly sales over £3,000. So for any amount she goes above £3,000, she's getting 2.5% of that paid, as well as her salary. So part A says calculate her gross salary for April when her sales totaled £9,000. So for commission questions, you need to be careful with the wording. It's not saying that she's getting 2.5% of all of her sales. She's getting 2.5% on anything above £3,000. So what is she actually earning commission on? So let's work out what she's earning commission on first. So she's earning commission on what? On any money above 3,000. And if she actually had 9,000 worth of sales, that means she's earning commission on £6,000 This is also another paper one, so we need to do this without a calculator, and we then need to work out what 2.5% of 6,000 is. Now for non-calculate percentages, obviously there's another percentages video that you can look at, but for non-calc percentages, you want to consider what percentage you do know how to work out using division, and then use that to work out this other percentage here, 2.5%. So for 2.5%, I know that I could work out 10 and then work out 5 by halving that, and then I could work out 2.5 by halving that again, or I could work out 10% and then divide by 4 because 2.5% fits into 10 4 times. Again, either way is equally valid. I would normally probably just do 10, 5 and then 2.5. So work out 10%, work out 5% and then work out 2.5%. And I'm just going to stick the wee A up here so we know this is part A. So 10% divide by 10, that's our common percentage that we need to know. So that would be 600. 5% divide that by 2 is 300, and then 2.5% with dividing further by 2, which should be 150. Or you could have divided straight by 4. You could have done divide by 2, divide by 2, or you could have gone from one to the other by dividing by 4 in one step. Just whatever comes to you, I guess, in an exam situation or in class. So they earn £150 of commission on that. That's not the final answer, however, because the final answer is their gross salary, which is the total. Remember, going back to the start of the video, we need to work out what they normally get paid plus any extras, and they normally get paid this amount here. So we need to add that on. So the total that they get is 2,450 plus 150, which is £2,600. Lastly, we've got part B, which says in her payslip she has the following deductions: income tax, national insurance and pension. Calculate her net salary. So the word net is basically what is left after any deductions have taken off. So it's gross salary minus any deductions. So for part B, we're doing 2,600, and I'm subtracting off all of those deductions above. So income tax, 334.67, national insurance is 230.20, and I'm subtracting off pension as well. Sometimes you might get asked to work out what those things are, but national insurance and things will be covered in another video. So I hope you don't mind, I'm just going to use my calculator just to do that, but of course you would set it out in a column calculation, just taking your time, but again just limited space as we approach the end of the video. And I'm working out that her net pay is £1,870 and 39p, having subtracted all that off. Okay, so for wages and salaries, what we need to remember is really this key fact here, that a person's gross pay is equal to what they normally earn. That's sometimes classed as their basic pay, plus any overtime or extras. Now what we can't really predict is what you're going to get asked to calculate really as part of that. Sometimes maybe you need to work out what the basic pay is. Sometimes you'll be given that. It could be overtime, it could be commission, it could be some kind of bonus. But if you stick with that basic principle, work out what each of them are and add them together, you should obviously have the ability to pick up some marks. And then we also need to remember that the word net pay refers to the amount of money that we've got left after any deductions such as income tax, national insurance and pension are removed. And likewise we might have to work out what pension is and what national insurance is and so on, but that will be covered in another video.